Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. My name is Tammy Takeishi. Today I am joined by artist Melanie Anderson. Melanie Anderson earned her BFA in graphic design from the University of Memphis and her Master's of Art Education from Memphis College of Art. She began her career as a graphic designer and served as the director of advertising for Catherine Stores Corporation for 15 years before becoming an art educator. She currently is working as an artist, a high school art teacher, and dog advocate living in Tennessee. She was recently named the West TN Art Educator of the Year, and she serves on the board of the Tennessee Art Education Association and is the Youth Art Month Chairman for the state of Tennessee. She's most recognized for large-scale paintings of colorful, happy dogs, and her personal artwork was published in 2014 and 2016 by Northlight Books Insight mixed media series and was featured in August 2020 in a special edition of Acrylic Works compilation from Artists Magazine. Her work and teaching practices were featured in the 2019 college textbook release Teaching and Learning in Art Education by Deborah Sickler-Voigt. And Anderson is in the process of writing a book entitled You Can Be a Maker: How to Find the Time and Space to Create, which is due for release this year. Welcome to the show. It sounds like you have some amazing things going on right now.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you about all things creative. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I don't know, audience, if you've had a chance to click on her links yet in the show notes, but check out those adorable pet photos. And she also accepts commissions. I always like to start with who or what inspired you to become an artist.
Well, I would have to credit my grandmother for getting me kind of inspired to be an artist. She was a really phenomenal artist and fashion designer. And she would have my sister and I, we'd spend the night with my grandparents a lot. And she would always pull out the art supplies. And that was just my favorite thing, was to go over there and create. And we would spend hours at her kitchen table just creating all kinds of masterpieces. You know, it was a lot of fun. And she was just always very encouraging us with anything creative. And then I would also say my time that I spent a lot of time in the Girl Scouting program, probably from brownies to cadets, which is kind of like, you know, into the tweens. And, you know, in the scouting program, you earn badges. I was one of those kids that I wanted to earn all the badges, and especially all the ones that had to do with creativity. And, you know, you had a badge for everything. There was everything from pottery to drawing and painting to needlework and leathercraft and woodworking, even candle making. I mean, there was, you know, there was a badge for everything. And I did them all the creative ones I did. And so I think that probably helped inspire me as an artist and make me kind of fearless as an artist, because I'm just not afraid to try anything. And I credit Scouts for that. And also the first art contest I ever won was through the Girl Scouts. And ironically, it was a drawing of some cats. So yeah, that was probably my early inspiration. And also, I forgot about this. I had a second grade teacher who was amazing. She was really into art history, and she promoted it with her second graders. Like I could tell you the difference between a Monet and a Van Gogh and a Renoir at a very young age. So, but that was all because of her, because she just really shared a lot of that with us and taught it to us.
That sounds so nurturing and wonderful that you were able to go out and be fearless in your art at such a young age.
It was great. And like I say, scouting is such a great program. And I'm such an advocate of Girl Scouting. It really was a formative time for me and gave me a chance to really try a lot of things. So it was great.
It sounds like it really made an impact on your adult life and the way you do art now.
It definitely did. I think scouting, it builds so much in the way of like leadership qualities and like say just skill building. It shaped me who I'm very much of a nature lover, and I love to camp and hike and that type of thing. And that all came through scouting as well. So yeah, there was a lot of things that the Girl Scouts taught me, and made me who I am. So yeah.
That's wonderful. It's always great to know that programs like that make a lasting positive impact on people.
Definitely.
So, obviously, you had a really artistic childhood and were exposed to a lot of different arts and crafts projects. But when did you first really become passionate about your field? And how did you decide on art and painting as you went into school?
Well, I really kind of came to where I am artistically in a kind of a roundabout way. Like you said in the bio, I started out my career as in advertising in the fashion industry. It was a while before I switched to education. So I was surrounded by a lot of creative people, and I think that experience really helped shape my aesthetic. And there was a long time there when I worked in that industry where I was not creating. I wasn't painting. I shouldn't say I wasn't creating. I was creating. I was doing a lot of things like painting on clothing, wearable art, that type of thing. In the 80s was all the rage. And so I did a lot of that type of thing. And I made a lot of jewelry. I really love creating like handmade jewelry. And so I did a lot of that. But it wasn't until I went back to school and earned my master's in art education that I got back into the studio and started painting again. And that's been a while, and I've been just pretty much at it ever since. But, I've been teaching now for 20 years, and I think that I'm very passionate about that. And I've been painting for longer than that, probably about 23 years straight now. And I definitely think that my art informs my teaching, and my teaching informs my art. And it's been a great journey. And I think that kind of brought me to where I am as far as passionate about teaching, and I'm passionate about making my art as well.
As an art educator, what would you say is the most important piece of advice that you give to your students?
For my kids right now, I teach an AP program at my at my school, and I also teach some of the upper level, the seniors. And I really try to teach them to use their artist voice. It's kind of their first chance to do this through these classes when they get into the AP program. And I want them to tell their story. I try to tell them that they can change the world through their art, and that this is their opportunity. They may not want to speak their truth, but they can speak their truth through their art. And so I think that's really important. And also I'm really adamant about sharing with my students what kind of careers in the arts there are for them, that what's out there, what's available, because I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about what creative people can do from a career standpoint. And since I've held so many different kinds of careers in the arts, and if I haven't held the position, I've worked with people in creative positions, I feel like I've got a lot to share with them in that regard. And so that's something that I really try to help my students with.
That's really great. I know on the music side, there's always stereotypes there as well about, what can you do with a music degree? It's not just teaching, it's not just performing. There's audio engineering, sound engineering, there's so much more. There's producing, composing, or making background music for things, so much more than what people traditionally talk about. And I'm sure that's the exact same way in the art world.
It is. People think that, if you're an artist, you're going to be a starving artist. But I found that if you're a creative person, you're in demand in the working arena right now. And and there are very good wages to be had for creative people right now. And I like to make sure my kids know that, my students know that.
Did you have any barriers yourself, internal or external, in reaching where you are in your career?
Yes, for sure. When I first started out, in the corporate world, I was very young. I was right out of college and, into my late 20s. It was the 80s and the 90s, and things were a whole lot different than in the corporate world than they are now. And I was the youngest director in the company and a female at that. And so I had a lot to prove, and I had to really earn the respect of the other executives in the company, both male and female. So I just came into work early. I left late. I just kind of outworked everybody to earn the respect and to kind of get where I needed to get professionally in that regard. But when I went into education, I was 38 years old. So I had been out there working professionally for a long time. And I think that my age and experience were definitely a positive going into teaching. And I don't think that was it was not a difficult transition for me at all, because I was very confident in what I could do and what I wanted to do. But as far as being a professional artist, I think those struggles and obstacles were definitely more internal. Most visual artists I know, whether they're trained or untrained, struggle with insecurities about their work. And that definitely was the case for me. And, I went through a lot of mediums, tried different subject matter before I really landed on the thing that I was passionate about. And when I started painting dogs, I just really found my happy place and a subject that really resonated with me. And my work has really evolved over the years, but I just feel very fortunate that I found the thing that I love to paint. And after all these years, I still enjoy painting it. And people seem to respond very well to it, what I'm doing. And like I say, I change it up a lot. The way I paint things have evolved over the years, but it's still something that I really enjoy. But yeah, definitely internal struggles from a professional artist standpoint.
It sounds like, now that you've found sort of your niche and what makes you happy, would you say your creative process has really been honed well, or does that change depending on the project you're working on?
I do have a definite process down that, it works for me, but I do like to experiment. That's something I really love to do, is learn new things, try new mediums, try new techniques, new materials. I love working with mixed media. So I'm always changing things up. If I'm doing a portrait for someone else, then a lot of times I want to kind of be consistent with the style that they're familiar with, unless they request that I do something different, which happens sometimes. But I do a lot of work that is just for me a lot of times. And that's where I really play and experiment and do some creative different things.
How do you think that this past year has affected your art and your creative process, like for positive or negative?
The pandemic, as awful as it's been, has given me more time to work in my studio than I've ever had in my life. For the first time in years, I actually got caught up with all my commission work and had time to pursue some projects that had been put on the back burner. I had several things I really had been wanting to do. I started this series that's been on my mind for a long time. I call it my matriarch series. I also love painting people. That's another passion. I just like doing faces a lot. And I had this series that I wanted to do that revolved around the women in my family. And I had a chance to get started on that. I did these 2 large-scale paintings of my grandmothers. They're surrounded with things that are symbolic of who they were. And anyway, I was very pleased with the way they turned out. I have other paintings planned, but I hadn't been able to do that until then. And then also I got to just really take the time and play with some new materials, new mediums, things I had not done before. I spent a lot of time watching, tutorials and just learning from some amazing master artists on YouTube, and, just definitely had some time to experiment and learn and grow. So it was good for my process, for sure.
When you were talking about that, about experimenting with other things and learning and growing, it reminded me of this art podcast that I listened to called Art Juice. And these 2 painters from the UK, but it's very fascinating. And they were talking about, very similar to what you were saying, being able to, everyone's sort of just been in a different state lately. Like they're either busy making art and exploring art, or they're maybe like on a pause.
Yeah.
So it seems like artists all over the place are just sort of experiencing this mass experience of either lots of things or not so many things.
Yes. And, I think I'm in a good place in my life. I'm an empty nester. And so this has given me a lot of time to create, but I know that there are working, mothers who are artists that now they're faced with, school and children. They become their primary educators. And, so that's not been a good thing for them. So I feel very fortunate that this happened in a time in my life when I really could take the time and do more creating and have that time, that freedom. So I feel blessed in that way for sure.
It's true. It really does highlight privileges and sort of gaps in society in terms of being able to be creative when you want to, or being able to even self-care, create for self-care.
Yeah. And I think that art has gotten me through this pandemic for sure. I think if I had not had art to do while all this is happening, I would have had a lot more trouble with this past year. My husband is a creative as well, and this pandemic has pretty much put the brakes on his business. He's in the entertainment industry. And so, this has kept me busy. It's given me something to do, something to focus on. So it's helped me through this for sure.
It's always good to be able to find purpose and inspiration, even in the dark times.
Yes.
You said you've been working and doing other creative avenues and creative arts. Besides what you already do in the creative arts, is there anything else that you would like to experiment or engage in?
Well, since you mentioned that, I have an art tribe. Okay. Me and a couple of my artistic friends, we get together once a week and we create. And it's something that I really look forward to every week. And we experiment and we do different things. There are three of us, and sometimes we have a couple more people join us, but we all create different kinds of art. One of my friends is a internationally renowned portrait painter. The other one focuses on landscapes. I, do my dogs. And so, but when we get together, we all try different stuff. So recently we've been working on mono printing, and we were playing recently with acrylic inks, or we might one day have a model come and do life drawing sessions, or we'll set up a still life. We're just always doing something different and experimenting and trying new things. So yeah, I hope I answered that question.
That sounds really fun. It makes me want to go out and wrangle up some friends and make art every week.
I highly encourage it. I look forward every week to get together, and we bring beautiful snacks and we drink wine and we make art and we just have a good time. It's such a great kind of artistic fellowship. And we take little art trips. In fact, I was working tonight on planning our next art trip. We'll go somewhere that, is having a great show or an exhibit, or we'll go to a town that's very artistic, has a lot of galleries and things. I'm working on a trip right now to Bentonville, Arkansas, to Crystal Bridges. And I'm going to go see that museum because I've not been able to visit that. But we recently went to Nashville to check out the Chihuly show at Cheekwood. And then we've been to Asheville, North Carolina, so I think, just being able to travel and see new things is always so inspirational. And so we do that also, which is fun.
It sounds like you're really able to fill up your well of inspiration, but is there something or a few things that inspire you no matter what?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, well, the people I surround myself with, definitely. I get very inspired by my friends, and then my students inspire me. I love being in my classroom studio environment. I've got some incredibly talented students that come to my class every day, and they teach me things. I learn things from them, they learn things from me. I think it's such a give and take. And they're so technically savvy, and my school just purchased app called Procreate, and I watched my students create for years on this app, and they love it. I've never delved into it, and I've always wanted to, but now I have access to it. And so I've been learning how to do it too. And I was trying to do something recently and I got stuck. And so I asked a couple of the students that were very good at it, and they were able to help me. And so, yeah, they inspire me. And I'll say Instagram and social media, those kinds of things are very inspirational. I follow so many artists on Instagram. And if I get kind of in a rut, or maybe it's a day that I really should be making art, but I'm just not feeling it, I'll go down that rabbit hole of Instagram and I'll start looking at things. And there's just a wealth of inspiration there. I can always find something that kind of gives me an idea or just makes me think about art. I think that's been a very good resource. And like I said, YouTube has got, there's a tutorial on just about any kind of art making you can think of. And I think that's been a super great resource and source of inspiration. Yeah, I think, like saying, travel's inspiring, and just your network of people. I reach out a lot and talk to people about art.
Would you say, I'm just terribly curious, would you say that the classics like Bob Ross, does that still get brought up in art classes, or have they moved on from that?
Yes, no, my students love Bob Ross. Yeah, they all know him. I mean, he is really impressed this generation. You would be so surprised. In fact, I had a student literally this past week completed a piece of art and Bob Ross was the subject. And it was a really good piece. So no, he's very influential on this group of people. This generation, they love it, and I love him. He's a lot of times I'll turn him on, turn his show on, and kind of fall asleep to it because his voice is so soothing, and I love just watching his painting when it kind of puts me in a really happy, nice, sleepy place.
Agreed. Yeah, he's got such a soothing voice and a soothing show, and I've never been able to paint anything that he's done, but I grew up watching that.
Yeah, I really enjoy watching him. In fact, this is so silly. I have a Bob Ross chia pet. Have you seen those?
Not in person. I've only seen them at the store and the little picture on it. They're so cool.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
I've seen Bob Ross bobbleheads.
Yeah, I have one of those too.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Oh, that's fantastic. So with your painting, I'm sure you have a lot of wonderful experiences and memories, but is there one in particular that stands out to you?
I would have to say I lost a sweet dog a couple years ago. Trixie was my little dog. She was a little teacup poodle and just precious. Was the first dog my son ever had and just very dear to my family. And I had done a lot of paintings of her. I painted all my dogs multiple times. They're kind of my muses. And so Trixie, after she passed away, I decided I wanted to do one more painting of her. And she was this little dog that loved to fetch her little ball. She had a tiny little tennis ball. And so I created this painting of her with her little ball, and the little expression on her face, she was actually like barking at us because she wanted us to throw the ball. Anyway, while I was painting that, it just gave me a chance to go back and kind of reflect on the joy that she brought to our life and reminisce. I think it was a good experience painting her. I think it gave me some closure, and now I have the painting in my studio and I get to look at it every day and just, remember her in a really joyful way.
That's really sweet.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful, such a wonderful way to use your gifts to, not only heal and process through losing a loved pet, but also to remember them, bring joy with the painting. So.
Yeah, and a lot of my clients have me do paintings of a pet that they've lost, and it's a little scary for me because I feel like that's such a big request and a big project. I want to make sure I'm doing justice to their sweet baby, and so I really take extra care when that's the case. And I always try really hard to take care of with my paintings, but especially when it's a dog that's passed, I think that's a very special request.
Yeah, and I am sure it's such an honor that they come to you for that too.
I totally feel honored, and yeah, I always tell them thank you for trusting me with this project because it is an honor that they do.
What would you say is one of the best compliments you've ever received? Not necessarily for a dog painting, but for anything in your work.
I think probably the best compliment was probably having my work published. I think that's just such a validating thing, and it was pretty exciting, especially the first time I ever had anything published. I've had my art in a couple of coffee table compilations, and then the artist magazine's acrylic works was a big deal for me. And then and then I got asked to share my teaching philosophy and some of my art in a college textbook. So it kind of was full circle for me with that. And so I think that was a really big compliment, I think. So I love that.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure it was very exciting.
Yes, for sure.
Speaking of compliments, on the flip side, do you have like a funny story or like a horror story regarding like any art shows or festivals that you've ever done?
Not really. I think any show's a great show. If you get to put your work in an art show, that's a good thing. I've I've just really had great experiences with art shows. Now festivals, that's a little different. Festivals are a little trickier. Yeah, I've had some tough like weather situations and some festivals that were really just sweltering hot. But as far as shows go, I mean, really, I love it all. I love interacting with people. I usually get really positive response when it comes to my artwork, and that's kind of nice because you don't always see that unless you're in that kind of situation where people you don't know are viewing your artwork for the first time, and that's good. I don't really have any bad experiences that I can think of in that regard.
That's always good.
Yeah.
Being an art educator, is there anything that's surprised you in the last year regarding adjusting to teaching through a pandemic?
Pretty much everything has surprised me this year. It has been such a challenging year. I've been in a situation where I've been teaching a hybrid model, and so it's been so hard. And I just so hope that we're about to make it through this year. I so hope that in the fall we start back to normal classes, and I hope no masks. I think the masks have been just the weirdest thing for students in the classroom. I don't know if you've talked to anybody else that's felt this way, but like students don't communicate when they're wearing a mask. They don't talk to me. They don't talk to each other. It's just been the most strange experience. And it's really sad to me. I mean, I think my class is usually a really interactive environment with lots of feedback from students, teachers. I usually have music going, and it's usually just a very safe, fun environment. And it just feels so different this year because nobody's interacting, and I just hate it. And everybody's spaced out 6 feet apart and wearing a mask. And so I'm just so ready for it to get back to normal.
It sounds like there were a lot of physical barriers that made art making sort of isolating to an extent.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think art is a very individual endeavor most of the time, but I think classroom critiques are important. I think that usually I have my students sitting around tables. They are all facing each other. They feed off each other. They push each other. They inspire each other. It's a time where I think my students get to know each other, and I encourage that. I mean, I've had some people make lifelong friendships in my classroom. In fact, I just was invited to a wedding of 2 people that met in my art classroom, which was pretty awesome. And they invited me to their wedding and said, "Hey, we definitely want you to be here because we met your class." And so I'm sad that we've had this year where they've lost that, but I'm looking forward to that coming back.
I'm curious, have you noticed the students' art be affected by the different environment in your classroom?
Yes, for sure. My AP class, they create a body of work that's conceptual, and they're all working with big ideas, and a lot of the work is it definitely reflects what they've been through. As far as the pandemic, and some of their work actually includes images with people with masks or with, the COVID virus in the background. I mean, I've seen a lot of that. And I do see some of them dealing with the isolation reflected in their work.
It definitely sounds like having your classes and having the safe space to make the art is really a positive thing for the students to be able to cope with such an unusual situation that they find themselves in.
I think it has given them an outlet for expression that, you don't get in some other classes. So I feel like it's been really a good therapeutic kind of thing for them to be able to come and make art and use their artist voice to express what's going on.
And what a gift that you give them, educating young students, even if they don't necessarily decide to become professional artists, you're providing a wonderful space to just be creative and express and in a safe environment. And that's so fantastic. So
Well, thank you. That's the hope. And, I always tell my students if they don't go on to have a career in the arts, I want them to at least understand how to appreciate art and talk about art and even consume art. So that's the goal.
you talked about traveling. What are some of your favorite places and museums that you've visited?
Oh, wow. So many, so many. Gosh, I used to spend a lot of time in New York. So, all the great museums in New York, the Met, the Guggenheim, the MoMA, the Frick. I mean, there's so many in New York that I would always frequent. And then, of course, the Louvre, Florence, Uffizi, all the galleries in Paris. Gosh, so many. And we've got some great local galleries too. I've been in a lot of cities. Like I always seek out whatever art galleries are available in the local cities. We've got a great art museum, several in my town here in Memphis. We've got the Brooks Museum of Art. We've got the Dixon Gallery and Gardens that, have great shows that come through on the regular. New Orleans is a place that I'd love to go because they've got a really good art museum, but they've just got so many galleries up and down Royal Avenue and the Magazine Avenue, and love that kind of thing. Let's see what others. I've been to a lot of great museums in California, Chicago, of course, Chicago Institute of Art, Washington, our National Gallery. Gosh, I love them all.
It makes me think like I need to put more art museums on my bucket list.
You should. You would enjoy it.
So you said you've done a lot of traveling, but is there any place that you have not traveled to that you'd like to go to?
Yes. I didn't get to go to Rome when I was in Europe, and I want to go to Rome really, really badly. I'd like to go to Venice as well. I'd like to go to Spain. There's so much to see artistically over in, the museums in Spain. Yeah, there's a lot of places I still want to go. And there's a lot of places in the United States I still want to go. I had to cancel a 2-week trip to the out west that my husband and I were going to take, and we were going to go had a lot of different art places. I was going to go to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum, and that was closed, and so a lot of the things that I wanted to see on that trip were closed, so we just canceled the trip. But there's a lot I want to see here in the United States still.
What is your favorite type of art to consume?
That's a hard question. I love portraiture. My house literally is covered wall to wall, salon style with artwork. And I like to collect my people I know's art. I like to collect other people's art. I collect it. I also hang a lot of my art because if I don't, it's just piling up in a closet somewhere. So I've got art everywhere. And I like all kinds of art. I like abstracts. I like portraits, I like landscapes, I like still lifes. Gosh, I just like art, and I like all mediums. Yeah, I'm not picky.
It's so interesting. I can hear so much passion in your voice when you talk about art.
Definitely is the thing I'm the most passionate about, that and teaching for sure.
It sounds like you really landed, in the place where you're meant to be. Did you always think that you'd become an educator?
No, not in a million years. I never thought I would be an educator. That was just not ever on my radar. I thought I was going to go just, tear up the corporate world, which I got a chance to go do the corporate thing and had, a really great experience with that. But teaching just wasn't on my radar. But, at one point, I was doing so much traveling when I was in advertising, and I became a mom, and that wasn't such a great career with an infant. And so that was when I kind of moved away from that. And my mom said, Melanie, why don't you think of, have you ever thought about going to school to be an art teacher? And I was like, oh no, my sister was a teacher. My sister's always been a teacher. And I just thought, that's what she does, that's her thing. But the more I thought about it, I thought, that might be a good thing. But I didn't really have the confidence. I knew how to make art, but I'm like, how do you teach art? But I went to school and learned a lot, and got that master's and got out there and started. And I do think I definitely landed in the right place. I know I'm where I'm supposed to be right now, and hopefully making a difference, out there.
Well, I can say you definitely put a smile on people's faces when they look at those adorable, adorable pet portraits.
Thank you so much. I really enjoy, doing those portraits. They put a smile on my face when I'm making them, and I hope that people react the same way. And yeah, I've gotten positive response from that, and I hope that continues.
If you had no budgets or limitations or barriers on a project, what do you think you would end up doing?
Wow. Over the years, I've thought about different things like that. Like, I know that I would want to do something. I would want to paint dogs, and I would want to do something that would benefit dog rescue groups. But I haven't quite come up with just that thing yet. I've tossed around a lot of different ideas, but I haven't hit on it yet. But one day I'm going to come up with that thing. And, I hope that it'll be something that brings awareness. I really am big on advocacy on, animals. And I've got such respect for rescue groups and people that do things to help animals and advocate for animals.
That's fantastic. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to any other episodes of my podcast, but on occasion, I do run like my own commercials regarding a charity here in Houston, Dogs and Rescue of Houston. So I always like to spotlight them when I can.
I love that. I actually have listened to a lot of your podcasts. I really enjoy it. I love the diversity of your guests. You just had so many different interesting guests on. I haven't heard that promotion yet, though, so I'll have to listen for that.
Yeah, and thank you for listening, and of course
Yeah.
for advocating for dogs, in your area too. So I was also curious, what is one of the most important things you've learned in your life, and it doesn't necessarily have to be regarding art.
Let's see. I think the most important thing I've learned is that the journey is the destination, and that you need to live every moment in the present because nothing's promised.
That's a really beautiful sentiment. Always harder to do.
Yeah, it is. It is something to strive for.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. Do you find that your painting helps keep you grounded in the present?
Yes, definitely. Like I say, that painting has gotten me through a lot of tough times in my life, gone through different health issues, myself and my family. And, it's always been my kind of thing I go to when I need to process whatever's going on,
It definitely sounds like art has been such a blessing in your life, for sure.
It has in so many ways. It's definitely been the thing that keeps me going and the thing that motivates me to get up in the morning, and the fact that I get to pass on some of the things that I know on to another generation. That's pretty exciting for me.
Do you have a favorite work of art of yours that you've done?
Probably the ones I've done of my own dogs. They're the ones that hang in my house. There is one I did that was in a publication of a dog with a couple balls in its mouth. It's called Eat, Sleep, Play, Repeat. That's a one that I like. And then there's a couple of large ones that I've done. Right now I've got a Chihuahua and a Chihuahua Terrier mix, and I've done a lot of paintings of those babies, and I like those a lot. They just make me happy.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice. Yeah. So I'm going to sort of switch gears and ask a really fun question. If you could have dinner with any creative person or persons, dead or alive, who would it be? And what would you have as the meal?
Wow, this might sound crazy, but I think I would love to have dinner with Dolly Parton. I think she is sweet, she's talented, she's an amazing businesswoman, and she's a girl from Tennessee just like I am, and I think we'd have a lot to talk about. I think she's so genuine and so real that I think she would be a really fun person to sit down and have dinner with. And we would probably have some good Southern cooking. We might have some fried chicken and some mashed potatoes and gravy and green beans, all of the good Southern stuff. We'd have to have some yeast rolls or some biscuits and some sweet tea, of course. And I think for dessert, we'd have to try she's got a new ice cream brand out. I think it's strawberry pretzel pie, I think is what it's called. Anyway, it sounds amazing. But I think I'd have to sit down with Dolly and pick her brain.
That sounds fantastic. And now you're making me hungry.
Right?
I'm going to have to look up that ice cream, strawberry pretzel pie.
I think that's what it's called. I hope I said it right.
I'm going to have to Google that. That sounds really tasty.
Yeah, strawberry pretzel pie. Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm making a note right now.
Right? I have to try it. I know.
That sounds so good.
Yeah.
Don't tell me it's only found in your home state though.
I don't think so. I think it's going to be widely distributed. I don't know where you can find it yet, but I'm going to be looking for it in my local grocery stores. Right? That's for sure.
Me too. I'll let you know if I find it.
Okay. Sounds good.
And speaking of meals and recipes, you provided me with an amazing recipe, which I have not made yet, but I am dying to. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I do this every year for Christmas. I make, there's a couple of things I make, but this is one of them. It's my Rocky Road candy. I didn't make up the recipe or anything, but this has definitely been something that has been passed down, through the family that we've always done. My mom is an amazing cook, and every year she makes the best candy. And I've made a lot of different kinds of candies over the years. Like I used to make fudge all the time, and I like fudge, but it's really sweet. But this Rocky Road candy is a really good combination of sweet and salty. And if you like that kind of sweet and salty, this is a 5-ingredient candy, and it could not be easier. And it is something that my family asks for every year, and I make it and I give it away. People always look forward to getting it. So it's easy to make, it's delicious. And like I say, it's sweet and salty is always a favorite of mine.
It does sound excellent. And who doesn't love those easy recipes for sure?
Yes. I'm all about easy recipes. I like good food, but I don't want to spend a lot of time making it. I do like to cook, but I like easy, simple ingredient kind of foods.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Well, before we go, I was wondering, what does living a creative life mean to you?
Well, for me, living a creative life it encompasses everything I do, from, how I prepare my food to who I surround myself with to, personal style. I mean, I think creative people they live every minute creatively. I think that, I'm always in research mode as a creative person. I think that I'm always aesthetically aware of my surroundings or of what I'm looking at or experiencing. And so I think that, everything that I do, I'm always in that creative mode. And you mentioned in the bio, I've been writing a book about being creative. It's, about being a maker and how to work creativity into your everyday life. And I share a lot of my tips and tricks of things that I do to keep creativity going every single day.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your book and where listeners can find it once it's out?
Well, it's funny. I wrote this book and it was all about my tips and tricks and things that I wanted to include in the book. And once the pandemic hit, I got to thinking about it and decided I wanted to include some contributors. So I reached out to people that I respect that do all different kinds of making and creating. And I asked them for some of their creative tips, and, they sent me pictures and things. So it's a lot of my tips and tricks, like, things like, sketchbook journaling and seeking out people in your area and travel. And I talk about, I have all these little art kits that I've created that I travel with, that I have all these little pouches with different kinds of mediums. So at any given moment, if I'm going to wait in a doctor's office, I'll grab a pouch and I'll go, because I can sit down with that and create some art. Or if I'm taking a road trip and I'm not driving, I grab a different pouch, then I can make some art, whether maybe it's embroidery or, maybe drawing, or I don't know. There's all different kinds of things that you could do on the go. So a lot of these things in my book are just tips on how you can work a little creativity and how to create a space in your home that is always there and available, and ways that you can, in a moment's notice, make some art. So that's what that book is about.
That sounds like a really great resource.
I hope it will be. And I'm still, like I say, I'm still working on it. The pandemic, I was going great guns on it, and it kind of, I don't know, I put a little pause on that. I need to get back to it. I need to finish it. So I think when I started adding the contributors, it became a much bigger thing than it originally was. But I think it'll be good once I get it all finished. So I still got some work to go on it.
Excellent. Well, we wish you the best of luck on that, and I definitely will keep an eye out for it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So where can our listeners connect with you via social media?
Okay, on Instagram, they can find me at Melanie T. Anderson, and on Facebook, Melanie Trout Anderson, trout like a fish. My website is melanieanderson.net. And if you want to follow my artistic journey with my friends, go to Girls Night Art on Instagram at Girls Night Art. And you can see all the different projects that we try every week and the different trips that we take and that kind of thing.
Wonderful. And listeners, her main website link will be in the show notes. Melanie, thank you for joining us and sharing more about your art and stories of who you are. I appreciate it.
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you. This has been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to listen to some more of your great podcasts. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.